Hi, this is Scott Miller. Welcome to my Top Performance blog. I am very pleased to be speaking with Gay Barfield from Hawaii. You haven't always been there, have you?
Island. It's amazing. I've been here 25 years now. It's
Hmm.
unbelievable how time passes. Yeah.
Have you gotten used to it yet?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I've gotten very used to it. The only thing I'm not used to is how far it is from you and everybody and all our family and friends. And as I get older, it's a bigger adventure to take trips. But
That's right. This month, a special issue of the journal Psychotherapy, that's Division 29's journal within the APA, was released, and its entire focus was on the empirical investigation of the therapeutic relationship.
so
And
funny.
as I was reading through this, I could think of no one better to speak to about the relationship than you, because
Mm,
you have a very long history in the field
yeah.
with relationship as a focus.
You
So
bet. Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
tell us just a little bit about you, and then let's move eventually into talking about why the relationship has been of such key importance in your work?
Mm, mhm. Well, let's see. Why the relationship is important in my work is probably about my life. And
Hmm.
my family was a very um, dysfunctional. My father was a well-known big band leader in the 20s and 30s, and we were on the road all the time. And I was a road kid, and then
Wow.
but his, as glamorous and charismatic and everything he was a very disturbed man, very violent, very aggressive, abusive to
No.
my mother, my family. And so relationship nowadays is that the model of relationship was so toxic and painful. And I went to San Francisco State to study education and took this class, and there was this handout, Scott, about by a man named Carl Rogers and the three necessary conditions. And I swear to you, I've told this before, but I was reading it and I literally started to sob. I literally started to cry like, my God, people can treat each other this way?
As opposed to what you'd been through.
Supposed to.
Hmm.
And it was such an eye opener. And I don't know how it happened, but maybe I read one of his books and I said, oh, I wrote him and said, I've been teaching kind of in your approach. And he wrote me back and said, oh, I'd love to hear about it. Could you? He said, I don't have anything in my book on high schools. Maybe you'd be willing to come down and talk to me. I swear. And I got on a plane and I flew down there and phoned him from a gas station. And I was all nervous, kind of like I am right now, a little excited. But um, and I called him and I was probably a little shaky. And he said, oh, I said, this is Gabe Swenson. You asked me to write a paper on and come down to the La Jolla program. And he said, you sound a little nervous. He said, I really want to hear what you have to say. So you
Hmm.
can. And there it was. I mean, it was like right there over the phone.
So he saw you. He saw what you were
He
experiencing.
heard me. He welcomed me. Yeah, it was lovely. Went to the Center for Studies of the Person. I became a member a year later and was there for 30 years. But we kind of took the principles into the larger macrocosm, and I
Right.
not just in our intrapsychic help or interpersonal relationships, but interracial and gender and countries, and so that's why ultimately we ended up doing the Peace Project together. Carl and I were
Hmm.
directors of the Carl Rogers Institute for Peace there, and we took it to the levels of international, leadership like presidents and
All
all that.
sharing this common core principles that you could feel on a telephone call as an
Mhm.
anxious new teacher approaching somebody who was viewed as a master and a leader, but potentially somebody that could be very intimidating and exploitive if he had wanted to be.
absolutely. And that the fact that he even answered the phone, I expected, I expected a secretary or something,
Right.
and, uh, and it wasn't that. So, yeah. So over the years, Scott, I think that just got reinforced.
Hmm.
That,
Hmm.
um,
It's interesting to hear you talk about the larger applications, and everything you've said here in the first minutes that you've spoken is so incredibly rich in detail and many avenues that we could explore. What I'm wondering about, if we take it from the larger applications just initially and the larger vision that you clearly saw from the outset, I'm curious about how somehow, and in the field of psychotherapy, at least in that interpersonal connection between a helper and somebody being helped, the emphasis on the relationship, and I guess you could make the same argument about our current political situation and the nature of how we speak to each other more broadly. But
yes,
but in psychotherapy, somehow the whole emphasis on the relationship got
got lost.
lost.
Got lost.
What
Yeah.
happened? Do you have a sense of
Well,
that? Was Carl worried about that? What's your view of it?
um, so I have said all along that um, that we've placed too much emphasis on, say, one aspect of relationship, like whether it's empathy and instead of saying that Carl knew from the beginning. In fact, his 6 core conditions, it wasn't 3, it's 6. And they, in his 1957 paper, where he delineated each of them, the very first one he said is the relationship, that we have to be in psychological connection with each other. And what we hopefully bring is a presence in that relationship that is congruent and authentic and intimate and real, and then caring, and then prizing and respecting. But the 6th condition, and this is still on relationship, that I think gets discounted, is that the important variable finally is that the person feels it, the client feels that they have experienced and received and been in connection with these qualities of being.
It wasn't enough just to
That
show
is,
it.
I mean, exactly.
It had to
It's
be
that
received.
it has to be received and acknowledged. And I think sometimes of um, your fit, that checking with the client and regularly checking with the client as to what they're experiencing at the moment and or at the end or whatever is part of that pathway,
Right.
to understanding, are we really together?
And as you talk about this, I'm thinking, I'm having a fantasy about why we end up with the emphasis on technique, because what you say sounds phenomenally challenging to do and also vulnerable.
Abs- yes, vulnerable. Yes, because it means that I'm just riffing in the moment with you to discover what we need to know about each other, and whether we can find the words fumblingly or uniquely or co-creatively in the moment, we will discover how to hear each other better.
Yeah.
If we do a routine or we do a procedure or something, um, we may hit a shallow level of understanding, but unless we go beyond reflection and active listening and into a vulnerable, to use your word, a vulnerable risking of how to check in with you, what's happening right now between us. And it's what's happening right now between us that's going to make the difference in both
Yeah.
of our growth.
Something that anybody watching this particular conversation doesn't know is that we spoke for just a few minutes before I turned on the recording.
Mhm.
And I have the same experience every time I see you, personally, Gay, or when I speak to you. There is a tingly, warm experience of feeling seen and
Mhm.
appreciated
Mhm.
uh, in a way that I can't quite describe. I can only say that, oh my God, that felt nice.
It feels good. It feels good. So we can play with it and discover it and laugh with it
Yeah.
and
But my
speak with
question is,
it.
how the hell did you learn that? I mean, how the hell did you just do that? Because certainly, I have to say, your childhood didn't predispose you to
Mm-mm.
it.
Mm-mm.
So what have you done? How has this happened? What?
I think compassion that comes from your own suffering.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I felt all my life that that kindness is the key to it all.
Hmm.
And Carl's work just showed that to me.
Hmm.
And listen, I have been a very adamant, outspoken, even aggressive feminist and everything else, and I can take very hard positions on things. But I've found that the fruits of that are self-defeating and harming of others. And I think over the years, I have softened a great deal, but still take very clear stands on what about humankind and about our relationships with each other.
Yeah.
And it just becomes clearer to me that
Hmm.
it's so much more sweet
Hmm.
to to not try to defeat somebody, but to be go along with discovering our best possibilities.
Well, and that word keeps coming up, appreciating capacities, appreciating our best
What
possibilities.
I do is realize that we're all in this together, and it's a learning pool. We're learning together. I may be 80 something, you may be 30 something. I'm going to learn a lot from what it's like to be a 30-year-old in this world,
Hmm.
40 year, and I have
That's not, okay, I got to
that's
interrupt you. That's not just some trite expression you're saying that I'm going to learn from you.
no, no. I mean, I think that we keep learning. I learned from 10-year-olds today that I couldn't have learned from them what the same. They are so different. They're so more, and we're learning from each other all the time, both ahead and behind, and
Hmm.
you know, who's come before, who's coming after.
For you, and all of your language, and even how you your face and your expressions all congruently say it's about me and you. It's about the connection between us.
Absolutely. And
And
see that
somewhere in there, the possibilities exist.
yes, because it is just about you and me. And that's where the tears come because whatever happens then between you and me will ripple.
So thank you very much for our time here. If people wanted to email you or have a conversation, would it be okay if I include your email address at the bottom of the blog post?
Yes, and my husband is having surgery in a week.
Okay.
And so I will be a little not as readily responsive, but I would love that. Sure.
Perfect. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Gay.
Love you and love what you do in the world.
I feel
Hope
the
I'm
same, Gay.
back and do it again here.
I'd like that very much.